On Monday, September 26th, we flew from Vilnius, Lithuania to Edinburgh, Scotland via Amsterdam Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands. As a previous video reviewed the Air Baltic A220 experience, the focus of today's video will exclude the first leg of the journey. The first few minutes will actually go over the transfer experience at Amsterdam Airport, which will then be followed by a review of the short-haul Intra-Europe economy class experience aboard KLM Boeing 737-800. So, let's get started. This entire journey began with some anxiety around current levels of quote-unquote airport chaos, particularly at Amsterdam Airport. While the peak of the chaos involving long lineups and flight cancellations took place over the summer, Schiphol had seen a resurgence of these inconveniences in recent weeks. So what was it like for us in late September? Well, in terms of airside transfer, not that bad actually. Our first flight with Air Baltic arrived in Amsterdam slightly ahead of schedule, and deplaning was fairly quick with the use of a jet bridge. The airport's moving walkways were a great help in moving passengers quickly from the very end of the airport pier towards the central transfer area. This was particularly important as we had to clear customs and border control for the second flight. With the inbound flight arriving mid-morning, there was certainly an expectation of a busy and chaotic terminal. While it was indeed busy, things seemed far from chaotic. The situation was further helped by the fact that our travellers in this flight review had passports that could be processed using the automated kiosks, otherwise known as e-gates. Thus, passing border control took less than 10 minutes. It should be noted, however, that a lot of effort was put into getting ahead of other passengers on our inbound flight. Some speedy walking ensured we were ahead of the pack for the border control portion of our transfer. Thus, it's quite possible that the situation could have been different and slower for those approaching customs at a different time. Due to previous experiences at Schiphol, there was an expectation to go through another security checkpoint. However, this was not the case with this particular trip, and most passengers were free to head to the gate immediately after customs. At the same time, a previous trip in 2021 for one of our travellers found that at the post-customs area there were airport staff randomly choosing travellers to go through security screening located off to the side. Thus, it's possible that experiences may vary when transferring through the airport, which in this case was going from Schengen to non-Schengen. All in all, however, the two main anxieties of transferring through Schiphol never materialised. Border control was quick and easy, while a security screening process was not required. Moving on, our travellers reached the gate for their flight to Edinburgh about a half hour before boarding. At this point, it was clear that the boarding area was far too small to accommodate all 180-plus passengers booked on the 737-800 service. This meant that some passengers decided to sit on a narrow windowsill, while others had to stand around outside of the gate area. Aside from this, the boarding process was fairly swift, and the gate agents did a solid job of controlling the process and clearly telling passengers which zones were currently welcome to get on the aircraft. Walking through the jet bridge and reaching the aircraft, the first thing experienced were KLM flight attendants greeting passengers and handing out packaged wet wipes to clean hands and/or wipe down surfaces. Passing through the cabin, it was clear that KLM had refurbished the interior of this particular aircraft. Indeed, it was in May of 2021 that KLM began to introduce its retrofitted economy class cabins on 737-800s. These new cabins offer new slim seats which are claimed to offer more comfort, along with Wi-Fi and a few other features which we'll soon go through in a later section of this video. The aircraft taking our travellers to Edinburgh was a Boeing 737-800 registered Papa Hotel Bravo Charlie Delta. This aircraft is about 9.5 years old and was delivered in May of 2013. Operating as flight KL1281, we noticed that this same service uses a mix of aircraft, depending on passenger demand. Thus, other aircraft types deployed on flight KL1281 have included the 737-700, 737-900, the Embraer E195 and E195-E2. So while the Dash 800's relatively new cabin was nice to experience, it would also have been great to experience KLM's new E2 jets. But moving on to the economy class seat, these have a pitch of about 30 inches and a width of 17 inches. With our main flight reviewer being nearly 6 feet or 180 centimeters tall, this felt adequate. It also allowed enough space to place a large backpack under the seat in front. While the seats on KLM's narrow bodies lack in-flight entertainment systems, the new cabins do at least provide USB ports to charge personal devices. These are situated between the seats in front and have 2 ports each, making for 4 ports available to 3 passengers. Other than this, there weren't too many other special features. The seats had mesh pockets and little plastic knobs to allow passengers to hang their jackets. Unsurprisingly, the seats also had tray tables, but also had separate cup holders, which allows passengers the ability to keep their tray tables stowed away while still having a place to hold a beverage. On this one occasion, the passenger beside us opened up their seat back pocket to find used tissue paper from a previous flight. This would indicate an incomplete and rushed cleaning job performed by the ground crews. Although seatback screens were absent, the airline was supposed to be equipped with in-flight Wi-Fi, which was supposed to include 30 minutes of free messaging. Unfortunately, we were unable to connect a smartphone to the network. It's possible that crews disabled this feature due to how short the flight was, which is typically about 1 hour.
There's some staff shortage in the loading department, so they're still loading the bags. Hope to take 10 minutes, and with that delay here, I expect to arrive in Edinburgh 15 minutes late, so local time around 12:25.
Our flying time today will be 1 hour and 10 minutes. We would like to extend a special welcome to our Flying Blue members. In a moment, I would like to explain a few things about the safety on board. In the unlikely event of an evacuation, follow the illuminated escape path to the nearest exit. My colleagues are indicating where the lights and nearest emergency exits are located. The exit might be behind you. Leave all your hand baggage behind and follow the instructions of the crew.
Moving on to our next point, a complimentary in-flight snack and beverage was provided despite the short flight. This is actually a standard service on KLM's Intra-Europe flights. The downside for these relatively fast services is the lack of choice, as all passengers on today's flight were only offered an egg salad sandwich. As for beverages, travellers could choose from juice or soda, as well as water or sparkling water. The egg salad sandwich was tasty, and it was nice to read the story of the sandwich on the packaging. Assuming everything written on this packaging is true, it looks like KLM sources its ingredients from local Dutch suppliers, which are also keen to prioritise quality. Furthermore, the cheese included in the sandwich is apparently climate neutral. As quickly as they had served snacks, cabin crews were quick to pass through to collect garbage and prepare the cabin for landing. Soon enough, we were beginning the approach into Edinburgh. This particular flight and approach into Edinburgh offered a fantastic view of the city from the left-hand window. Unfortunately, this particular view isn't guaranteed, as the approach into Edinburgh Airport appears to alternate. In fact, some flights come in from the northeast on some days, while on other days flights may come from the southwest. Still, if you want to get the best view of the city on the way in, it's recommended to select a window seat on the left side and just cross your fingers for a northeast approach. The landing experience was okay, as it definitely wasn't the smoothest. After making contact with the runway and slowing down, it felt like the wheels of the aircraft weren't completely round or inflated, since the journey towards the terminal was rather bumpy. However, it's much more likely that the runway surface wasn't completely smooth. We arrived about 20 minutes past the scheduled arrival time, but didn't have to wait too long for the jet bridge to be extended. Deplaning was about as fast as it could be on a narrow body with a single exit point, and we walked quickly towards customs and border control once out of the aircraft. Edinburgh is a small airport, which meant that it only took about 2 minutes of walking to reach border control inside the terminal. This final part of the journey wasn't too bad, as there were also automated gates at this airport. Again, as travellers holding Canadian and EU passports, those in this flight review were able to make use of these e-gates. Frequent travellers of certain nationalities who might be concerned about running out of space in their passports for stamps won't need to worry about this aspect of entering and exiting the UK. Indeed, the use of the e-gates means that once you're through, you can head off to baggage claim and no stamp needs to go into your passport. At the same time, this might be disappointing for travellers who actually do want to have their passport stamped. Ultimately, the entire experience went much better than anticipated. With the recent news of travel chaos at Amsterdam Schiphol, there was certainly some worry of a slow transfer and missed connection. However, passport control at Schiphol was quick with the use of e-gates, while security screening between flights was not required, or at least limited to the selection of random passengers. Wireless internet connectivity in the terminal was also easy to access and fairly fast, while there were also many locations in the terminal to charge devices. While there was seemingly no Wi-Fi available on board, the KLM flight experience was still good, even if nothing stood out as amazing. Flight attendants were friendly and professional and performed the in-flight snack and beverage service quickly. Indeed, the only issue was the used tissue found in the seat back pocket, but these things do happen from time to time, especially for aircraft scheduled for a quick turnaround. The travellers in this review chose to fly with KLM and transfer through Amsterdam due to a lack of direct options from their origin airport of Vilnius in Lithuania. If we include the allowance of a second cabin bag for each passenger, then the overall flight cost was about twice as much as a low-cost carrier service of similar length. However, if a direct Ryanair service had existed between Vilnius and Edinburgh, it would likely have been the preferred choice, just to avoid a second flight and an airport transfer. Have you flown with KLM or transferred through Amsterdam Schiphol Airport recently? Was it better or worse than our reviewed flight? Share your experience by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.